Metering software usage. If you've been a long-time user of SMS or Configuration Manager way back before SMS 2003, back in the 1.2 and the 2.0 days, you may be familiar with the concept of software metering. Back in the very early days of SMS, software metering was one of those components that everyone knew you should never really turn on because it has a tendency to break your environment. Well, really, in SMS 2003 and again in Configuration Manager 2007, software metering got a complete overhaul in terms of what it can do. Most of the overhaul occurred in SMS 2003. There's been relatively few updates that occurred in Configuration Manager 2007. What this tool does is it actually allows you to understand not only what software is involved in your environment and available in your environment, because SMS already provides those through the inventory functions, but when are people using that software? How often are they using that software? And so understanding that and knowing when and where people are actually using software in your environment is useful for helping you understand, well, have you overbought software? Or do you need to buy more software? Are people actually using the software you've purchased for them? This is going to be a really short nugget because there's really not that much involved with the process of turning on software metering and creating rules and viewing reports. There are really three things we're going to talk about in this nugget. That's the client agent and actually enabling software metering on the client agent, and enabling and creating metering rules which discuss which applications you want to watch to see how often those applications are being used, and then actually viewing the reports associated with those applications. By default, metering runs and the clients will update to the server about once a week. Their metering information, so as not to be a big resource hog for the server. And so we're going to enable some rules and show you sort of what the reports would look like if you had that metering data brought into those reports. And so let's actually start by minimizing this, and we're back to our Configuration Manager console here. And the very first thing we need to do is make sure that our client agent is actually enabled for the software metering client agent. You'll see we double click this here, and we have indeed enabled the software metering client agent. So those clients are going to begin to look at various executables that we've programmed down onto them and watch to see how often those executables are actually being used. Now you'll see here under the Schedule tab that by default that data collection schedule occurs every 7 days. And we can reduce that number down if we want or increase it up. That's the amount of time that the client is actually going to dump its collected information up to the server. Now, really with metering data, you're looking at historical information anyway, so having this occur at 7 days is probably good enough. In fact, a larger amount of time may even be better for you, depending on how often you want your clients talking into your server. Because again, you're looking at really historical data over an extended period of time. How often have your clients been using the software that's on your network, and really who in your network is making use of that software? Once we've done this, we can actually close this down, and what we're looking for here under Computer Management is the software metering node. Now you'll see by default we have a number of applications that are already enabled here inside of our software metering node. We have Admin Studio and SQL Server and some things within the Windows operating system like the command prompt and some VMware stuff down here and MS Search, these sorts of things. You'll notice that here is the original file name that we are looking for. Although the name here for any of these applications may be, for example, VMware Tools, VMware Tray, the actual file name that we're looking at is VMware Tray.exe. What software metering is doing is really almost like a stopwatch. It's timing how often the VMware Tray.exe application is being actively used by a user on that system. And so we have a bunch of information here associated not only with the file name but also the version and the language ID for the applications and for the executables associated with those applications on our systems. Now if I scroll to the right over here, you'll see that we have whether or not those applications or the metering rules for those applications have actually been enabled to this point. If we want to monitor to see if that executable is actually being run, we need to change this from false to true. So let's say if we want to find out whether or not people are making use of, the VMware Tray application. This would let us know when people are making use of VMware in our environment in any location, because the VMware Tray is generally installed to VMware virtual machines. If we right click on this and choose the Enable button here, what this will do is immediately change that from false to true and then begin instructing our clients the next time they download their policy to begin watching for when the VMware Tray.exe application is being run by the system. We'll know this because it's in the task manager. And so now that those clients are looking for this VMware Tray application, they will report up every so often to let the server know the statistics associated with the use of this VMware Tray application. Let's actually drill down into this VMware Tray application and find out what we're looking at when we're actually looking at the application itself. We have a name here, VMware Tools, just like we saw before, and the file name, VMware Tray.exe. We also have an original file name that's related to it if we want to change the name there, and a version associated with it, and a language and a comment associated with it. All of these define really what we want to look for on those clients. For example, instead of using one of the existing ones, if we want to create a new software metering rule, we can right-click and choose New Software Metering Rule. By choosing New Software Metering Rule, essentially what we're doing is, again, looking for the file names that we want to look for on our machines. Maybe we're looking for Microsoft Word 2007. And in this case, Microsoft Word 2007 is going to be the win.word.exe file name, and we'll leave the original file name alone because it's the same. And in this case, we're looking for a version. Microsoft Word 2007 is actually version 12. Version 12.star. In this case, we're going to look for all of the versions of Microsoft Word that are at least at version 12, and that are at least have the language of English, and we can have a comment there and the site code here associated with CBM. So this allows us to now then create a rule based off of when winword.exe is being used in our environment. If I click the next button here, I can apply security to it if I want and choose the finish button. And now that we're complete, you'll see we have a Microsoft Word rule that we've created that is looking for winword.exe. And that's really all there is to do. There's nothing left that we need to do either at the server side or the client side for the clients to begin looking for this information. Now, we need to let this marinate for a while. We need to let this sit around for a week or two and gather some statistics about the different applications that we're looking for. Maybe we want to engage more of these executables and look for the use of more of these executables. Once we actually have data that is useful to us, we can then go here into the reporting node and actually view the existing reports that are available that relate to software metering. You'll see here that I've opened up the reports node and sorted by category, and there are a number of software metering reports that are already available inside the Configuration Manager console by default. And these reports give us a lot of healthy data about when the applications are being used, who is using those applications, and on which computers. You'll see here we can see total usage for all metered software programs. We can look at computers that have a metered program installed but haven't run the program since a specified date. This may be a useful tool for us, for example, if we want to find maybe users are requesting applications and they're not actually using them, so we can go and harvest those applications off those machines and harvest the licenses for use elsewhere. We can show total usage for all metered software on terminal servers or install base for metered software programs, or even just the metering rules for this site. And so as you can see, there are a lot of reports available so that we can understand where our applications are being used and where they're not being used. Just like with any report, if I right click and choose run on this report, it's going to bring up the Internet Explorer and allow me to choose information about, well, do I want to view what month and, for example, what year? And let's say I want to view information for May of 2008. If I enter in those values and hit display, I'm going to bring up, well, all of the software metering rules, the number of users that have actually used that rule, terminal services and otherwise. And then I can drill down if I want into those individual software metering rules to find out more information. For example, let's say I want to drill into Admin Studio and find out more information about Admin Studio. In this case, we haven't had any records found because we haven't let this marinate for the week or two that's required for it to start developing information. In your environment, you're going to have a lot of workstations and a lot of servers that are plugged into your Configuration Manager instance. And so over a very short period of time, you're going to be developing the data that you need to be able to drill in and locate where you have inefficiencies in your software deployment policies. And really, again, that's all there is to software metering. So this is a relatively short nugget. So what have we talked about in this nugget? We've talked about the process of metering software. We've talked about why it's useful to you and how you can use that to help you true up your licenses and get an understanding of where people are actually using software in your environment. We talked about creating and enabling the client agent for software metering and adjusting its schedule as necessary. And we talked about metering rules and creating metering rules, as well as creating metering reports and how you can use those reports, again, to understand that software usage in your environment. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.